First up at 10, it is almost the weekend. Yeah, we're that close. So many of us may be planning a trip to the beach. We know the weather is going to be right for it this weekend. There are some that you may want to avoid.
Satellites have recently detected a development that has startled both scientists and the public. The United States Geological Survey issued a warning after a sequence of high-resolution satellite images revealed a disturbing ground shift beneath the Florida coast. This unsettling discovery has raised alarms not because it signifies immediate catastrophe, but because of what it implies about the changing stability of one of America's most vulnerable regions. The Florida coast, already known for its porous limestone foundation and susceptibility to sea level rise, now presents an even more complex puzzle as hidden movements beneath the surface are brought into focus. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The satellites captured subtle but measurable shifts in the terrain beneath Florida's shoreline. At first glance, the changes may seem like mere ripples in the Earth's crust, but experts recognize them as signs of larger processes unfolding silently. Florida's subsurface is a delicate network of limestone and carbonate rock that erodes easily, forming sinkholes and underground caverns. When the USGS warning referenced a terrifying ground shift, it was not exaggeration for effect, but a genuine acknowledgement that these movements could represent the beginning of destabilization. If these shifts expand, they could alter coastlines, reshape underwater channels, and compromise the balance of ecosystems that thrive at the fragile intersection of land and sea. The Gulf Stream and Atlantic currents wash against Florida with relentless force, and beneath the shallow coastal waters, sediments shift naturally. Yet the scale and suddenness of the satellite-detected change points to more than routine sediment migration. Scientists suspect a combination of tectonic adjustments and the gradual undermining of the seabed by water seepage. Over time, saltwater intrusion dissolves limestone, hollowing out underground cavities. These voids are invisible from the surface until the ground above begins to sag or collapse. With satellites now capable of measuring micro-movements on the Earth's surface, the hidden workings of Florida's geology are being revealed in unprecedented detail. For decades, researchers have warned that Florida's geological makeup is uniquely fragile. Unlike states built on harder granite or dense rock, Florida's very foundation resembles a sponge, riddled with pores and passageways. When shifts occur under such a foundation, they reverberate in ways more unpredictable than in areas with more solid ground. The warning from USGS highlights the fact that the detected movement is not isolated but part of a larger pattern. As water levels continue to rise and storm activity intensifies, pressure mounts on this already precarious structure. The satellite data confirms that processes once thought to unfold gradually are now accelerating. The implications extend far beyond geology. A shift beneath the Florida coast raises questions about infrastructure, urban growth, and population safety. Coastal cities like Miami, Tampa, and St. Petersburg sit at the edge of these vulnerable zones, with millions of residents living above land that could be subtly deforming. The detection of a shift does not mean buildings will suddenly topple, but it does mean that stability cannot be taken for granted. Roads, bridges, and seawalls designed under assumptions of stable ground may need reevaluation. The USGS warning is a call to reconsider how coastal development is planned in a region where the Earth itself is proving to be less stable than once imagined. Equally concerning are the ecological ramifications. The Florida coast is home to mangrove forests, coral reefs, and seagrass meadows that rely on a delicate balance of sedimentation and water flow. If the seabed is shifting, it could alter currents and nutrient distribution, potentially disturbing these ecosystems. Coral reefs, already stressed by warming waters and bleaching events, could face new threats if sediment patterns change and suffocate living coral. Mangroves, which buffer against storms and erosion, could be uprooted if the shoreline shifts even subtly. The warning therefore resonates not only in scientific circles but also among conservationists who see in this event a possible tipping point for ecosystems already under siege. Satellites have revolutionized how such dangers are detected. Traditional ground-based monitoring in Florida often misses the deep or offshore changes that precede visible damage. Satellite imaging, however, can detect millimeter-level shifts across wide areas, offering early signs of trouble. In this case, the satellite spotted a pattern of ground deformation spreading in patches along the coastal zone. These were not simple seasonal changes, but movements that appeared cumulative, suggesting an underlying structural cause. The USGS, tasked with interpreting such data, understood that ignoring the signs would be irresponsible, hence the public warning. The sense of unease comes partly from the unknown. A shift in the Earth's surface is not inherently catastrophic, but in Florida's context, it raises fears of sinkhole formation or sudden subsidence. Historically, sinkholes have swallowed homes, highways, and even entire lakes in Florida, emerging without warning. When the ground beneath the coast begins to move, the possibility of larger collapses inland becomes more credible. The warning, therefore, is less about immediate disaster and more about acknowledging a heightened level of risk that requires vigilance. Geologists studying the data emphasize that the forces at play could be linked to both natural cycles and human influence. Groundwater extraction, for example, has long been tied to subsidence in Florida. As aquifers are pumped for drinking water and irrigation, the supporting pressure within underground rock layers decreases, allowing collapse. Coupled with the rising intrusion of salt water due to sea level rise, this extraction accelerates the weakening of the subsurface. The satellite-detected shift may be a manifestation of these combined pressures: natural dissolution of limestone amplified by human activity unfolding under the cover of calm coastal waters. This warning carries special weight because Florida's economy and identity are tied so tightly to its coastline. Tourism thrives on its beaches, fishing relies on healthy waters, and real estate markets boom along oceanfront properties. If the stability of the ground beneath the coast is questioned, the ripple effects could stretch into these sectors. Tourists may not think about subsurface shifts, but long-term investors and planners will. Insurance companies, already wary of hurricanes and flooding, may see this development as one more factor increasing risk. For Florida, where environmental change often intersects directly with economic reality, a shift beneath the coast is not an abstract scientific note, but a matter with far-reaching implications. Satellites have been monitoring global ground deformation for years, particularly in volcanic and seismic regions, but Florida rarely appears on the map of such concerns. The detection here marks a shift in focus, reminding us that instability is not confined to mountain ranges or earthquake zones. Florida's vulnerability lies not in dramatic tectonic clashes, but in the quiet, steady undermining of its foundation by water and time. The USGS warning emphasizes that vigilance must not be limited to traditionally high-risk zones. Sometimes the most alarming shifts occur where they are least expected, beneath the tranquil coasts of a peninsula famed for sunshine and leisure. The discovery also highlights the importance of technological advancement in confronting hidden threats. Without satellites equipped with interferometric synthetic aperture radar, these subtle movements would likely go unnoticed until more dramatic consequences emerged. Now, with early detection, scientists can model potential outcomes and advise policymakers. The challenge lies in communicating the seriousness of such warnings to the public without inciting panic. A ground shift may sound abstract to many, but when framed in the context of infrastructure, safety, and ecological stability, the relevance becomes undeniable. This situation forces a reckoning with how humans interact with fragile environments. Florida has long been a case study in rapid coastal development, often at odds with the limitations of the land. The warning underscores that the coast is not merely a backdrop for human activity, but a living system subject to forces beyond control. To ignore these warnings is to build castles on sand, both literally and metaphorically. Awareness of the shifts must feed into planning decisions, resource management, and conservation strategies if Florida is to remain livable and prosperous. The scale of this discovery also reverberates beyond Florida. Coastal regions worldwide, from the deltas of Southeast Asia to the low-lying islands of the Pacific, face similar vulnerabilities. The Florida case becomes a cautionary tale of how hidden geological processes can destabilize entire regions when combined with climate pressures. If such shifts are happening in Florida, it is reasonable to suspect they may also be unfolding elsewhere undetected. Thus, the USGS warning is not just regional, but global in implication, urging a broader reconsideration of how coastal stability is monitored and managed. What gives the Florida shift its terrifying dimension is not immediate destruction, but the convergence of fragility, population density, and environmental change. Millions live on a thin strip of land balanced precariously atop dissolving limestone. Every new signal of instability hints at vulnerabilities that could reshape life along the coast in coming decades. For residents, the knowledge that the very ground beneath them is moving is disquieting, a reminder that stability is never guaranteed. For scientists, it is both a challenge and an opportunity to deepen understanding of Florida's subsurface and to refine the predictive tools that might one day save lives and infrastructure. The USGS warning, grounded in satellite precision, calls for preparedness. While it does not announce catastrophe, it insists on respect for the forces shaping the earth beneath Florida's waters. It points to a landscape where unseen shifts matter as much as visible storms, and where vigilance may make the difference between foresight and regret. In the end, the discovery is not simply about geology, but about how societies respond when confronted with evidence that the ground they rely on is less solid than they believed. The discovery of the ground shift beneath the Florida coast has ignited an entirely new wave of scientific inquiry because the questions it raises stretch far beyond geology. When satellites first revealed the movement of the Earth's surface, the immediate interpretation centered on subsurface erosion, limestone dissolution, and tectonic adjustments. Yet once researchers began to assess the broader context, they realized this was not simply about rocks and sediments. The movement of the ground has social, cultural, political, and environmental consequences that will unfold in ways as unpredictable as the shift itself. To grasp the significance of this moment, it is necessary to explore how such a phenomenon ripples outward through every layer of society. One of the most pressing concerns lies in the realm of urban planning. Florida's coastline is lined with high-rise condominiums, luxury hotels, and sprawling suburban developments. These structures are designed with specific assumptions about soil stability and sea level rise projections. When those assumptions are challenged by evidence of ground deformation, the entire framework of planning and zoning must be re-examined. Engineers now face the prospect of factoring underground instability into their models, a daunting task in a state where so much infrastructure hugs the shoreline. Even if the shifts remain small, the mere possibility of compounded instability over time forces a reassessment of how and where to build. This revelation could delay future projects, inflate costs, and alter the architectural identity of Florida's coast. The political dimensions are equally complex. Florida's government has long been embroiled in debates over climate change, environmental regulation, and development policies. The USGS warning now adds a tangible, data-driven dimension to those debates. Lawmakers will have to decide whether to invest heavily in new monitoring systems, strengthen building codes, or restrict development in particularly vulnerable areas. Each of these choices comes with economic and political risks. Restricting development could trigger resistance from real estate interests, one of the most powerful economic forces in the state. Strengthening building codes might protect lives but also increase housing costs in an already expensive market. The satellite data provides an undeniable foundation for action, but translating that science into policy will ignite fierce battles between competing priorities. On the cultural level, the very identity of Florida as a sun-soaked paradise is being challenged. For decades, postcards and tourist brochures have painted the coast as a land of perpetual leisure with its white sand beaches and sparkling waters. Beneath that imagery now lurks the unsettling reality of an unstable ground. Residents and visitors alike may begin to perceive the coastline differently, no longer as a stable stage for recreation, but as a shifting, uncertain frontier. Such cultural shifts take time to manifest, but over years they can alter migration patterns, tourism trends, and even the psychological sense of safety that people associate with the place they call home. The USGS warning is a reminder that identity and geography are inseparable. And when geography changes, so too does identity. Economically, the ground shift poses challenges that extend into multiple sectors. The insurance industry, already strained by escalating hurricane damages and flood claims, now has another variable to contend with. Ground instability could translate into higher premiums, stricter coverage requirements, or even the withdrawal of certain insurers from coastal markets. The real estate market could feel tremors as well. Coastal properties command premium prices, but the revelation of instability beneath the shoreline might dampen demand or spark calls for more thorough geological surveys before sales. Investors who once viewed Florida real estate as a secure asset may begin to hedge their bets, diversifying into regions with more stable foundations. The ripple effect could ultimately touch the state's broader economy, given how much tax revenue and employment flows from property development and tourism along the coast. Beyond the human sphere, the natural world is being forced into an adjustment it did not ask for. A shifting seabed can reshape currents and sediment flows, altering the very architecture of the marine environment. For instance, seagrass meadows depend on stable sediment to anchor their roots. If the ground beneath them shifts or collapses, entire meadows could be uprooted, removing critical habitat for manatees, sea turtles, and countless fish species. Coral reefs, sensitive to both chemical and physical changes, could also face destabilization. Shifts in the seabed could expose reefs to new currents or bury them in unexpected sediment flows. Such disruptions cascade through the food chain, ultimately affecting fisheries and the livelihoods of people who depend on them. The USGS warning, while focused on geological movement, carries within it a profound ecological message. The ground shift is not isolated, but interconnected with the living systems above it. This interconnection becomes even more apparent when considering Florida's role in global climate systems. The Florida Current, which feeds the Gulf Stream, plays a vital role in regulating oceanic circulation across the Atlantic. Any change in the coastal seabed could, in theory, affect how water moves through this system. While the detected ground shift may not yet be large enough to alter global currents, it reminds us that seemingly local geological changes can have far-reaching climatic consequences. If shifts become more pronounced or widespread, they could interact with existing climate stressors in unpredictable ways. The event underscores the fragility of interconnected systems, where a shift beneath one coastline reverberates through oceans, atmospheres, and ultimately weather patterns across the globe. Education and public awareness are also being reshaped by this discovery. For many Floridians, geological processes remain abstract until they manifest in sinkholes or coastal erosion. The USGS warning, amplified by satellite imagery, provides a tangible entry point for public engagement. Schools may begin integrating these findings into curricula, teaching students about the science of ground deformation, the risks of living on limestone foundations, and the broader implications for sustainability. Museums and science centers could design exhibits explaining how satellites detect such shifts, bringing the invisible into view. Over time, this heightened awareness could foster a culture of resilience, where citizens are better equipped to understand and respond to the risks inherent in their environment. From a scientific perspective, the discovery is a watershed moment in the study of coastal geology. It demonstrates how advanced monitoring technology can reveal dynamics previously hidden beneath the surface. The use of interferometric synthetic aperture radar allows researchers to measure minute changes across vast areas, turning the Earth itself into a living dataset. This technological leap not only enhances our understanding of Florida's geology, but also opens doors for similar studies worldwide. Coastal regions in Africa, Asia, and South America could benefit from the same level of scrutiny, potentially uncovering hidden instabilities before they manifest in disaster. Florida thus becomes both a case study and a proving ground for a new era of geological science, where satellites and sensors are as critical as shovels and drills. The warning also forces reflection on the temporal scales of human and natural processes. For centuries, Florida's coast has shifted and reshaped itself, with barrier islands migrating, beaches eroding, and underwater channels opening and closing. These processes usually unfold over millennia, beyond the scope of human memory, but satellites now compress time, allowing us to witness movements in real time that once remained invisible. The contrast between human lifespans and geological rhythms becomes stark. Residents who see their coastline as fixed within their lifetime are confronted with evidence that the ground beneath them is moving within years, perhaps even months. This realignment of perception may be unsettling, but it also deepens our appreciation of the dynamic nature of the Earth. The psychological dimension should not be overlooked. To know that the ground beneath one's home is shifting, even slightly, can instill unease. People rely on the stability of the Earth as the ultimate foundation of security. When that foundation is called into question, It can erode confidence not only in physical safety, but also in the broader sense of permanence in place. While the USGS warning does not imply imminent collapse, the knowledge itself becomes a kind of burden, reshaping how people view their surroundings. This psychological impact may ripple through communities, influencing decisions about whether to stay, move, or invest in property. It is a subtle but powerful consequence of bringing hidden geological truths into the public domain. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the USGS warning about Florida's coastal ground shift? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.